Hello guys and welcome back to yet another video on my channel. Today I'll be working on Trumpeter's 1/35th scale KV-1 Ehkranami. I heard a lot of people online saying Trumpeter has great detailed kits, so I picked this one to try it out. Before starting to work on the kit, let's take a really quick look at what comes in the box. After I take all of this out of the box, of course. The box is really filled to the brim with the parts. Little did I know back when I filmed the unboxing how much work I'd need to put into this kit. But I think it all paid out in the end, though we'll see. As for why I opted for this kit, it is because it has extra armor plates, so it makes the KV-1 a bit more interesting. Let's start with these rubber tracks. They seem pretty detailed and they aren't too thick, though I'll probably use the plastic ones that need assembling because they can have some extra detail. And here's the hull. It looks pretty sturdy, no flash on it, and on it is the year of the tooling, 2005. And here's the turret, looking pretty immaculate, not gonna lie. Inside there is a copper wire and some transparent parts. As for the painting instructions, there is only one version available, that comes with 4 decals. Decals don't seem bad, so applying them surely won't be a problem. Though, we'll see. And here are the instructions. On the first page are some basic information about the tank and some warnings. Then, on the next page, we can see a scheme with all of the sprues in the kit, to make it a little easier to find the parts you need. First step requires loads of drilling. Then, there's gluing of the hull sides, suspension mounts and the back part. After that, the front top plate is lowered onto the hull and some more suspension pieces are being added. Then, some more suspension pieces are being added. After that, the suspension on the left side of the tank is being finished with some more bits as well. Then, extra armor is being added along with some more bits. After that, the top engine cover is glued to the hull along some more extra armor. The 8th step is a god-forsaken assembly of billion return rollers and sprockets. Next up is assembly of the tracks. After that, the return rollers and sprockets are being placed onto the hull. Then, same is done on the right side. After that, the tracks are placed on the tank. And then the side skirts. After that, the turret and the chain are assembled. Then boxers are put onto the side skirts. To finalize the assembly of the tank, turret is lowered onto the hull as well as the chains. Now, without a further ado, let's open these plastic bags and start working. And here are all the sprues ready to be worked on. First, I cut off the sprue the side panels of the lower hull, then the side skirts, and in the end the upper front of the hull. Before I did any assembly, I followed the instructions and cut the holes in the designated areas. Now, as of writing the script, I know that I didn't need to follow them completely. You can skip drilling the holes for the turret extra armor panels and glue the extra armor panels onto the relevant areas. If you just take a bit of the panels insides that go into the holes to save yourself quite some time and make the panels more secure, because they have very little surface area to be glued to if they are lowered into the holes, making them pretty delicate. After drilling all the holes needed, I proceeded by gluing the side panels onto the hull. There were no issues with the fit whatsoever. I just had to make sure to apply lots of glue so they'd glue properly and not leave any tiny gaps behind. After that, I glued the upper front panel to the hull. It didn't have any flash or anything like that, but it seems that it is maybe just a tiny bit smaller than it is supposed to be, because there are like little trenches on the either side where the panel is supposed to connect with the hull. So some filler is needed, or just stuff them with very tiny bits of plastic that completely melt down in contact with the cement, so it just fills those trenches. I mean, Soviet tanks did have a lot of imperfections, but if you leave as it is, it would be way too much to just turn a blind eye to. Now, enough about me rambling about the upper front plate. After gluing it, I glued this some sort of back part onto the tank. Then, I glued this some sort of plate between the suspension pieces. Speaking of the suspension, next up were these some sort of suspension mounts. They went into their designated spaces with no issues. I even didn't have to sand down the area with which they were connected to the sprue, because it went into the hull and didn't cause any issues with the fit. So that saved me some time. Speaking of saved time, this particular kit takes a lot of time, because a lot of backtracking is needed. There are seam lines all over some suspension parts, and particularly all over the wheels. So you have to make sure to properly sort them out before gluing any of them to the hull. Then, after probably the easiest part of the suspension related parts have been glued into their place, I glued the top back armor plate to the hull, which went into its place with no issues. Next up, I started placing some sort of tiny details onto the upper back plate of the tank. Now, as you guys watch me try to glue these details, I'll answer some of the questions that I got on my Instagram Q&A that I said I'll answer here. There will be a few Q&A sections in this video until I answer all the questions. Now, without a further ado, let's start with the Q&A. The first question is from my friend Archie. Sup Archie, hope you're doing well. Now, his question is Cassiopeia or Takanaka, my friend? Oof, that's a hard one. I can choose, because both are great. You can't make me possibly choose between them. The next question is from J Smith. How many hours do you have on Paradox games? Well, maybe around 300 to 400, though it is mostly on HOI 4 and a tiny bit on EU4. Next question is from Ricky Tiki. He asked, what is heavier, a kilogram of steel or a kilogram of feathers? Lol. Well, both weigh the same, it is just that they have different densities. Enough Q&A for now, back to the assembly. After gluing those details into their place, I glued the upper front plate into its place. After gluing the upper front plate, I proceeded by gluing the return roller mounts into their places. They went in with no issues and luckily they didn't require any extra work, aside from taking them off the sprue and sanding down the areas that were connected directly to the sprue. After gluing the return rollers into their place, I glued the other tiny panel between suspension parts, like I did a few steps back on the other side. Pay attention to the flash on the upper back plate, you gotta sort it out. After sorting out the upper back plate, I glued it onto the hull. Also, it seems like it is a tiny bit smaller than it is supposed to be, so there will be a trench on either left or right side, depending on how you glue it. So you'll have to fill it with putty or, I guess, very tiny plastic scraps like I did, so they are just usual panel lines.
What melody is currently blessing my ears?
While I was working on the back of the hull, I placed these hooks, they sit in their place, so there's no need to glue them. After having placed the hooks into their place, I proceeded by cutting off the suspension legs of the sprue and clinging seam lines onto them. This step was very repetitive and time consuming to a degree, because you basically have to sit down and just sort these suspension legs out. It got boring pretty quickly, but I guess it was a small price to pay for salvation. After that, I assembled and glued these sprocket mounts into their place. While gluing them, make sure to align them with the rest of the mounts so they are in a straight line. After I glued and aligned the sprocket mounts, I started gluing the suspension legs into their place. You just slide into these hexagon holes so they lock into their place with no issues. Only a tiny bit of glue is needed to fully secure them and they are good to go. I glued these suspension parts into their place. There were no issues with them, luckily. After that, I glued the third ring. Use as much or as little glue as you want on this step because it won't affect the maneuverability of the third later on. Then I assembled the sprockets. Luckily, they didn't take too much work to sort out and assemble. Next up was the driver's hatch. I glued it shut, but I guess that you probably could keep it in an open position because there are some details on the underside of it. Though I'd also recommend buying a driver figure to go with it since no figures are included in the kit. Then it was time for me to glue the engine vents. I had no issues with them, they slid into their place and I just had to use a tiny bit of glue. After that, I glued this some sort of panel that goes over the border of the upper and lower front plate. it was time for me to glue this some sort of driver support, I think, I managed to glue it into its place with no issues. Next up was the machine gunner's sight. After that, I added some bits onto the lower plate. Now it was time for me to start gluing the extra armor panels and some suspension bits. I'd recommend you gluing the extra armor panels to as much surface area as possible, because they have been molded in a way that they barely touch the hull, so glue doesn't have much to hold on to. I don't have anything notable to say about gluing the suspension bits, because at that point I started getting a bit sick of it because it was very repetitive. Then I cut the top engine cover off the sprue and glued it into its place. I gotta say that it has a great fit. After that, it was time for me to finish adding the extra armor onto the upper part of the hull. I'm black. Assembly of the machine gun went without any bigger issues. It was just a tiny bit annoying to clean the areas that were attached to the sprue, because the parts were so tiny, so I was barely able to hold them. Attaching them to the tank was a breeze though. I spared you having to watch me suffer while sorting out the wheels, so here's me gluing them to the hull. After that, I assembled the idlers. And then I glued them to the hull. It's too bad that the tank can't have much play value. I blindly followed the instructions and glued the exhausts into their places, but I'd recommend gluing them after painting the tank and them separately, because you won't risk ruining the paint job of the tank by painting them while they are already on the painted tank. While I was still working on the backside of the tank, I slid these hooks into their places. I did some work on the side skirts, gluing some details onto them.
You're being biłaś
And to finish the assembly of the side skirts, I glued this tank onto its place. It didn't want to sit into its place without a fight though. All I had to do before starting to assemble the plastic tracks was to sort these return rollers, and God did it take a while.
koliko peda.
Hey bro,
Watch your jet, bro.
bro.
Watch your jet, bro.
And here's how my epic odyssey of trying to glue the track links into a track began. Little did I know how long it would take and how repetitive it would feel.
Ej, jebie. Kurde. Ty. Dwa.
I had to pay attention to find the right track link for the job, because if the tension was wrong, it would just fall apart.
Minutes later. Three hours later.
While I glue these track links into place, let's do another round of Q&A. Miss Elements asked, "Is Moya your favorite emoji? Why did you choose it?" Well, I didn't have an idea what to use as a profile picture for my Instagram and later for my YouTube channel, but I wanted something recognizable and iconic. Sometime, a few years ago, a follower of mine drew me a Moyai and I liked it so much that I've been using it ever since as my profile picture. As for the meaning, I don't know, I just like it. It has some mystic aura behind it. It reminds me a bit of me, how some people told me before that I'm stone-faced because I have a resting bitch face, so it is even me to an extent. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, enough Q&A for now, back to the assembly.
Two 2,000 years later.
Da ovo proletalo isako bi prst otprilike na pola. Student Abdelkader želi da seče glavu ljudima. Molim nadležne organe da reaguju. Ko se lača mati, sam ga se naklati.
I've been messing around with the tracks for some time, so I decided to make a break and start working on the turret. Working on it felt refreshing, after having to struggle with billion track links that just wouldn't sit right. There is no flash or seam lines, so not much work is required, you just need to glue the pieces together and you are good to go. Next up for me to glue were these bigger back parts of the turret, as well as another turret ring and two block-like parts that will allow the turret to freely rotate without falling off the model. While gluing these two blocks, give them some more time to cure properly so they just don't fall off or move, because they don't have a lot of surface area with which they connect to the turret, so they are quite fiddly and if not glued properly, will just make the turret slide off the hull all the time while trying to move it left or right.
No trabalho.
After that, it was time for me to finish the assembly of the main turret parts by assembling the gun and its mantlet and gluing it to the rest of the hull. I had no bigger issues with it, I just have to say that on the one of the pieces of the gun mantlet is a seam line, so be sure to remove it because it will be really visible if you don't remove it. It will just take you a few seconds and give your model a much nicer look. Now let me reply some more to the questions I got sent in the Q&A. After distracting myself with the work on the turret, I had to come back to finish assembling the tracks. I'll reply to more questions while you watch me struggle with these tracks. Hugh3415 asked, how can I also make memes like you? Well, listen here. There isn't a recipe for memes. I mean, there are meme formats, but it is important to always innovate and think of new jokes. I might be getting way too much into this, but for you to make memes, you need to be creative and have a lot of things you find interesting so you could use them as references or make jokes about them. I mean, you do need software to make memes, but having ideas is more important, because templates will only get you so far. Next question is from Old Unc Abe II. He asked, what is your favorite tank? To be honest, I don't have a favorite one. I admire them and find them all interesting in their own regard. Punte asked, what's my height? Well, my height is around 187 centimeters, I think. So yeah, do with that info as you wish.
Konobar, još fleša.
Zikax asked, do you think that Balkan borders need redrawing? Pros trying to get me into trouble. I just think that we should stop fighting amongst ourselves and really start being there for each other, because we are getting screwed by both the East and the West, and they are making us fight amongst ourselves and profiting off of it. You didn't expect such an answer, did ya? Rokadie asked, from which brand do you have the most scale models of? Almost all of my models are from Tamiya. The MiG-21 bis, the IS-2 and the IS-16 are from Zvezda. I completed 3 Revel kits as of writing the script, just 1 Airfix kit and just this one kit from Trumpeter.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Many.
Kebab324 asked, do you ever plan on working on modern kits, as in kits of modern vehicles? Yes, I plan to someday. It is just that I particularly like interwar and World War II vehicles, so I have a sweet spot for them. I have a Sea Harrier in my stash that I'll soon work on. I know it isn't the most modern, but yeah, in short, modern vehicles will be coming, though not too often. Unless I find kits that I think are interesting, not crazy expensive, and actually available to get near me. Duffer SSR asked, "Why is your name Kotsa?" Well, it is a nickname that I was given by a friend of mine back when I was little, and it stayed until now. It doesn't have any meaning, and it is read as Kotsa, not Koka. I mean, in Serbian you read it as Kotsa, and I don't like how Kotsa looks like written, so I write it as Kotsa even in English. Zhikex asked, this is his second question I believe, "Do you plan on modeling concept tanks?" Well, maybe someday. There's enough on my plate currently, there are loads of tanks and planes that actually exist. Concepts will have to wait a little. Let's go back to the assembly of the tank, or I better say the turret. I cut the commander's hedge off the sprue, sorted it out, and then, without any issues, lowered it into its place. Once again, as I said for the driver's hedge, there is a bit of detail, so you could keep it open, I suppose, though if you did, I'd recommend getting a commander figure, since there are no figures included in the kit. Next up, I glued these bits that go on top of the turret and the top panel of the gun mantlet. These bits that go on the top of the turret have a seam line in the middle of each one, so you will need to remove the seam lines before gluing them into their place. After that, I glued these Q ports, I suppose, for the crew that was in the turret. Luckily, they didn't require any extra work, so it all went like a breeze. Next up, I glued the machine gun that goes to the back of the turret. I did the same assembly, fiddled a bit with the parts until they stayed in their place, and glued the machine gun to the back of the turret. And after gluing the machine gun, it was time for me to add the final details onto the top part of the turret. These some sort of handles, I guess. And now, this was the final part of the turret assembly. I just had to add these extra armor panels onto the turret to complete it. I mean, the tank is called Ehkranami, isn't it? I just recommended not drilling the holes into the turret, but just to glue the extra armor plates after cutting the bit that would go into the holes, because you'd get more surface area for glue to react to and make the extra armor panels much more sturdy. Here's how the assembled tank looks, with the turret lowered into its place. Let's now go paint this beauty. These are the paints and the primer I'll be using. First, I primed the whole model in black, so I could do some pre-shading. Then I airbrushed the tracks while I waited for the primer to dry. After I finished painting the tracks and I made sure that the primer was dry, I started to do some pre-shading. I just used some light grey all over the areas I thought would be interesting to have some color variation later on. After the light grey used for pre-shading had dried, I loaded some Soviet green into my airbrush and started coloring the hull. I thinned down the color more than I usually do, so I could slowly build up the layers and make color variations. I didn't follow any sort of guide, I just kind of went with what I thought looked good, to me at least. And here's the KV-1 Ehkranami after I had painted it. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with how the color variation turned out. I was nervous that it would look like a big uniform green blob, because the painting scheme is a bit boring. It is just a single color, but pre-shading helped me with the variation and spiced up the final result. Next up, I had to glue the painted tracks onto the rest of the tank. Little did I know how much time would it take and how many times would they fall apart. While I try gluing these tracks, let me answer some more of the questions you sent me on the Q&A that I said I'll answer here. Decals asked, how much does it take you to complete a model? It all depends on its complexity. The more complex it is, the longer it takes. Also, 1/35th scale or 1/48th scale tend to take longer than 1/72nd or 1/76th scale tanks and planes. 1/72nd or 1/76th scale tanks, if they are simple, assembly and painting wise, I can complete in a day. If they are complicated for painting, they can take 2 days or maybe even more. Bigger scales take me around 4 to 5 days of work. And that was it for the Q&A. I've answered them all. If you have anything else you want to ask me, comment down below or just write to me on my meme page and I'll feature the questions in future videos. As I was nearing the completion of the kit, I painted the transparent parts. First, I painted the part that goes into the headlight and later I painted the stoplight. That fell is the stoplight, so I glued it to the back of the hull. Then, off camera, I managed to complete gluing the right track. Here's how it looked. Then, I assembled these some sort of towing cables. After that, I glued the side skirts into their place and very carefully painted the towing cables with some silver. And as a final touch, before sealing the paint job with a gloss coat to ready the tank for the decals, I very carefully colored this some sort of tool with gunmetal grey. And with that, the tank was ready to be prepared for the decals. This is the gloss coat I used. After I covered the tank in a gloss coat, I put the decals into the water so I could apply them. They were very flimsy and they had bent on themselves, so they were a lot of trouble. First off, they didn't want to slide off the paper for some reason. Then while on the model, they wouldn't move even if I put some water under them. Then, when I finally managed to maneuver them into the right place, they wouldn't conform to the details of the extra armor panels of the third. So I went multiple times with some decal softener until it worked to a degree. Overall, the decals are far from the best and I think that they turned okay-ish. But they could have been much better, and don't mind how they look currently, you'll see a bit later on how they turned out. I did the weathering, but unfortunately off the camera. After I had placed the decals, I decided to put a matte coat onto the tank. And here's the completed model. Trumpeter KV-1 Ehkranami in 1/35 scale. All fully complete. It took me 5 days in total, way too much sanding, gluing and painting, but I managed to finish it in the end. Honestly, I picked this kit up because of the extra armor panels, because they give KV-1 a little more visual interest than the usual variant. Was it worth it? Well, it depends. I think it turned out good in the end. I'm pretty happy with the result, even though I had to deal with countless seam lines and a lot of flares. So, if you are willing to put in the work, I guess it is worth it. Yeah, the kit was around 30 bucks, so it is half the price of Tamiya's KV-1. Or at least what they ask for it here in Serbia, though Tamiya's kit is probably a little cheaper where you are from, because here they do a tiny bit of price gouging, but Tamiya's kits would definitely set you more back than Trumpeters. All in all, I'm satisfied, though I wish that the decals were better. What do you guys think? Do you have any suggestions? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe. Stay safe and see you next time. Bye!
Tvoj zalezak će za 3 godine imati porodicu. On tako glupo ga sjećam. Nemoj da mi ližeš zaliski.
Nemoj da mi ližeš zaliski. Ne lomi mi zaliske.
Ne lomi mi zaliske. Ne mogu. Ne lomite mi zaliske. Imaš akne, evo ti skalpel. Rošava lice, imam skalpel. Imaš mladež, imam skalpel. Imaš izraslinu, imam skalpel. Tu sam za sve vaše probleme. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
Ne, nije. Ajde, sečem glavu. Da. Precision. What a sensation from listening to this musician. Editore, gotov si.